What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here with Mike Kaye. We're back for another episode of the No Huddle Show here at NovaCare Complex. This is our preview episode, day earlier than usual. Some travel things going on, so we won't be able to do it on Friday. But we're both headed out to Minnesota pretty soon. We're getting a nice little preview of the weather here today. It's a little windy and cold, and I think it's going to be in the 40s in Minnesota. Not looking forward to that. But we got some updates today, specifically about Deshaun Jackson. You know, we talked about this the other day a little bit. We both don't think he's going to play this week. Doug made that seem pretty clear. He wasn't at practice today. Orlando Skandrick, this is what we're recording this on Wednesday, by the way. Orlando Skandrick wasn't at practice. Can't imagine that's a serious thing, but the fact that he's not there is a little strange. But Deshaun Jackson, I mean, at what point do you think, maybe it's already there, but at what point should they prepare for life without? Not necessarily never plays again, but I don't know. He was great that first week, and then he has this lingering injury, and there's a good chance that when he comes back, he can re-aggravate it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some sort of contingency plan, and I think from their perspective, the field's shrunk. They're not able to target anyone downfield other than rookie running back Miles Sanders, who Carson Wentz even said you don't want to overdo it with that.
Yeah.
Because of the mismatches and taking away the illusions and possible.
Yeah, if you're doing it a lot, then it doesn't catch the team by surprise as much.
Right.
Yeah.
You want somebody who can win automatically with their matchup every single time they run a route. If you want that deep threat guy, I do think it's time for the Eagles to kind of scour the trade market a little bit. But, Deshaun is a guy that even if he's not getting open, he still commands double teams. Yeah. So I think it's a situation where even if he comes back, maybe he's just a decoy.
Just getting him on the field, yeah.
I think that's the issue. It's not necessarily his production, it's his presence that's the problem. And I think if he's not back by Dallas, I think you really need to look into making a trade, because realistically, you while we said that you can go 1-2 during this stretch, realistically, the best possible scenario is going 2-1 at minimum, because that sets you up to potentially win 11 games this year. And, when they get back home for the next 3-game stretch, they're facing 3 playoff teams. So I think you need to make the most of this stretch while you can and pull off some upsets.
So to give you an idea of how bad the receivers have been, Deshaun Jackson is second among the wide receivers in receiving yards still, and he's basically played one game. Nelson Aguilar leads with 180. I was looking at Dalvin Cook's stats, just by every metric, he's been amazing. But so he's second in the NFL in rushing, but he also has 200 receiving yards, which would rank second on the Eagles to Zach Ertz, aka he has more receiving yards than all of the Eagles wide receivers, and that's while getting all of those carries on top of that. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the dire straits right now. And you're talking about trade, and it's funny, just an hour or two ago, I saw this article from Gil Brandt on NFL.com. He proposed AJ Green trade fits, and he had the Eagles in there. They're going to be mentioned for any receiver that. I don't know how that would work exactly. If they were trading for AJ Green, there's a good chance Deshaun Jackson's probably not coming back this season, I feel like.
Well, but also he's got his own injury woes.
Exactly. And he's not even healthy, but yeah, I mean, he's obviously, when healthy, a top 5 to 10 most talented receivers in the NFL. I don't even think it would necessarily take that much to get him, honestly, just because of the injury. He's going to be a free agent. So I'm curious, what the Bengals would get. If they could buy low on him, maybe you just do it anyway. I don't know. That seems like a Howie type move, to buy low on a talented guy, even if he's banged up.
For sure. I mean, look, there are very few deep threats like Deshaun Jackson, so you're probably going to have to...
And you're not going to get a Deshaun Jackson.
Right. You're going to probably have to trade speed for route running or size or whatever. There's going to be a guy who is appealing from another point of view. It's just probably not going to be as appealing from a speed perspective as Deshaun is. The thing is about an AJ Green trade, you need this talent now. You need this guy in the building. You need him to be able to pass a physical.
Healthy,
we keep talking about the cornerback thing. I think Corey Edlin's done a fantastic job given what he's had to work with.
Yeah.
And you can trust him as a coach. Right now, Carson Walsh, I don't know what he's bringing to the group. I'm not calling him out. I'm not saying that he's bad or anything. I'm just saying he's also a first-year wide receivers coach here. And
in general, I mean, he only coached in the CFL before.
Right. So, yeah, I think he was like a special assistant with
Yeah.
Chicago. So I just think you need to help him out as much as you can. It's very clear that Carson has a lot of trust in Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Ertz. Outside of that, I'm not sure he has a lot of confidence in anybody else.
And why would he?
Right. I mean, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside dropped some critical passes. Nelson Aguilar had the fumble. He's dropped some critical passes. He's you know, we talked about him a lot on the last podcast, but Nelson's kind of like a man without a home right now.
Yeah.
Not that he's not contributing, because he is a good blocker away from the ball. He's been very good as a decoy in fake run gadget plays. But they need somebody to step up and make big plays down the field. And Miles Sanders has caught 3 passes of over 30 yards, and he's averaging 13.3 yards per catch, which is the highest average outside of Deshaun Jackson at this point. When your running back's that guy and he's only caught 10 passes, it's a problem 5 games in.
Yeah. Are there any receivers that, because I'm just looking at like some of the bad teams, like is there anyone that comes to mind from those bad teams that you think a week or two from now, if they feel like they really, because they're running out of time to do it, it's the end of this month.
I mean, Devontae Parker's interesting.
Devontae Parker, Emmanuel Sanders would be interesting hypothetically. They'll probably have to get rid of Aguilar at that point because he's a slot receiver, right?
Right, yeah.
A guy this would be a very buy low, but Dante Pettis, he's as fast as like anybody in the NFL.
I love Dante Pettis.
He's barely played for, I think he's like in the doghouse.
Yeah,
in
he
San
had a brutal
Francisco.
drop the other day.
So he kind of fits here perfectly, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
But I mean, and he would solve return problems because he's in college, he was one of the best returners I've ever seen.
He's one of my favorite.
So he'd be like a buy low type. They missed the window to buy low on John Ross, it looks like, even though he's hurt now.
Yeah.
But he was looking pretty good.
Look, Stephon Diggs has been the guy that's the obvious one, but they obviously wouldn't trade him this week because they're about to play each other. After this week, though, that could be interesting. I doubt it happens.
Was there anyone else on the Dolphins?
No, Kenny Stills would have been the guy.
Your boy Alan Hearns.
He was
killed
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's not coming here.
He's also not fast.
No, not at all. Yeah, he's not a fit in any stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Oh man, their receivers are bad. Wow.
Maybe you could take a look at some guys that are deep on depth charts, but
yeah,
do one thing.
That's kind of what I thought about Dante Pettis because they have a bunch of guys there.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are teams that are not doing well that are going to want to trade off assets. It's a matter of finding the right guy. I don't think trading for Zay Jones would have done anything. The Raiders did that earlier this week. I don't know what they're doing. I think it's because Terrence.
What's his name?
Williams.
Tyrell Williams.
Tyrell Williams is injured, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's like a go-to team for trading wide receivers at this point. Typically, if you're bad, you have bad offensive talent.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not like the Jets really have anybody.
I mean, Robbie Anderson, but
Robbie Anderson.
I don't know if that's still like a thing.
Yeah,
I think Joe Douglas likes
him. He's been pretty bad this year, but
yeah. I mean, the Eagles held him to 16 yards. So
yeah.
If he can't get open against the Eagles corners, I mean, how are you going to expect him to be a go-to guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it definitely feels like a spot where if the guys keep on performing like they have, Howie's going to go out and make a move. Like that just feels like a thing Howie's going to do.
Well, here's what I find interesting, right? It's like he trusts the big-bodied receivers, so I don't know if it's a matter of so Goddard, Ertz, and Jeffrey. Maybe you kind of reverse course and it's not about speed and you just play bully ball and you try to trade for a big guy who can go up and get the ball. There are several guys like that around the league. It's just a matter of, are they up for grabs?
Yeah. The next couple weeks are going to be because I think Howie's going to, over the next week or two, kind of figure out what exactly he needs to go get, especially as these guys get healthier or don't get healthier.
Well, and I also think I wouldn't blame him for being skittish about a midseason trade after what happened with Golden Tate. So there's that. And then I also think, you wrote a really good column today about how great of a trade and how great of an asset Jordan Howard is. It's looking like one of his best trades ever, but I don't know if you can find that similar value at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially once it's in season. I mean, Deshaun was kind of like, they got him in that kind of value too this offseason. That looked like it was going to be a great trade. If he can get back, it still will be. But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how he's forte is he trades third, fourth rounder later, and he kind of steals somebody from another team that you kind of don't expect. All right, so today, Mike Zimmer, you saw the Mike Zimmer conference call. Did he talk about anything particularly interesting?
I saw it.
You heard it.
No, you
saw the phone.
Yeah, I did see the phone. Yeah. He said that he felt like Jordan Howard added another element to this running game, and I think, or just kind of opened up the offense because of his ability to fall forward and break tackles. He said something interesting, like you could tackle him around 8 yards out, and it's 2nd and 2. You know what I mean? Like he'll pick up yardage after contact. He talked about Andrew Zendejo. He made a joke. He's like, I'm sure he's singing like a canary to you guys, which I thought was really funny.
To us, no, but maybe the coaches.
Yeah. He was asked about, if he was worried about Zendejo passing on some facts, dropping some knowledge about the Vikings defense. He said that they were going to adjust accordingly. But outside of that, Mike Zimmer really didn't have a lot to say, as you could probably imagine. Yeah.
So, Dalvin Cook, I did mention him. I should say Doug Peterson he was asked about it, I should say, about how the Eagles famously really wanted to get him in 2017. Mm-hmm. And 2 picks before they picked Sidney Jones, the Vikings swooped in and got him. Did they trade up and get him? I forget.
Yes.
They did trade up.
Yeah, they jumped him.
I mean that dude's an absolute stud. He was banged up his first 2 years, and now you're kind of seeing what they've been missing with him being hurt the last 2 years.
Yeah, you brought up a great point about the receiving game, but the reason why he's so good at picking up receiving yards is they use screens a ton. Like, I think they use at least a half a dozen screens against the Giants. He's very good at using that as an extension of the running game. So it's not like he's going out and catching passes down the field like Miles Sanders, but what they're doing is they're setting him up well with blocks. Their offensive line is very athletic. They'll get in front of him. It's the Gary Kubiak system, so there's a lot of zone blocking. And I think what's happening is Kirk Cousins, they're doing a lot of built-in bootlegs and rollouts, and that's getting defensive linemen kind of in space and monitoring the quarterback. And I think he's able to get the ball out, and, Cook's been very patient in following his blocks, and it's worked out. I mean, he can break tackles in the open field, too.
It is like a fun what-if, like thinking about if they had gotten Dalvin Cook. Because first, how that impacts that draft. So you don't get Sidney Jones. You probably still get Rasul Douglas then in the late 3rd round. You don't need to draft Donald Pumphrey in the 4th. I mean, I looked at some of the guys that are available after him. It's not like a crazy talented group, but like George Kittle was there. There's a few interesting defensive backs. That's probably the direction they go. And then you don't sign LeGarrette Blount. You don't trade for Jay Ajayi. It's just one of those ultimate, because they were so close to getting him, obviously, and they really wanted him. So
yeah, I mean, overall, though, I would say...
it worked out okay. I'm saying, it's just I mean, Dalvin Cook is better than Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount combined, of course.
I think I would trade having a running back for a Super Bowl.
Yes, for sure. And that's kind of...
I don't know about you.
That's kind of been the running line that they've had in general when everybody's asking about running backs. Like, we did okay with the committee.
And I think they're back to doing okay with Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders, which I think...
And this is a legitimate 1-2 punch, too, because that was more like a 4-person thing. They would rotate everybody in.
Yeah, I think they've mitigated the damage of not getting Cook, for sure. I mean, granted...
would you say these two are more talented than the group that was there in 2017? I feel like talent-wise.
Statistically, yes. So, if you look at the Green Bay Packer game, their combined production, the trio of Corey Clement, Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount only exceeded that once. Yeah. So, and they were together for 10 games.
Yeah, and these guys, that was basically their
that was their 4th.
Yeah, it was the 4th game at first though when they were both heavily featured too.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think as a duo, they're more talented than the trio or quartet that they have.
And also that kind of ties into why I think it'd be smart to just lock Jordan Howard in.
I agree.
He first of all, I didn't realize this until I looked. He's only 24 and he's in his 4th year, and Miles Sanders is 22 in his 1st year. So he's young. And he's already had a lot of tread on his tires, though he had less carries last year. But yeah, he's 24. Even at the very high end, his contract, I can't imagine he would make much more than Mark Ingram got on his contract. Just based on Mark Ingram is maybe a little more. He's not more proven because Howard's numbers are pretty crazy. But he made 3 years, $15 million. If you can get Howard for $6 million a year, with the amount of cap space the Eagles are in line to have. I think you can afford to do that. Maybe you put a bunch of it on this year, so reduce the cap hit or whatever. But I just think Miles Sanders is going to be really good. He's flash talent right now, but why not just have the best two guys in there? And who's to say that Jordan Howard won't be the best running back 3 years from now between those two guys?
Well, and I think it makes sense for him to re-sign as well because it'll prolong his career. I mean, having a two-back system as opposed to being the guy will help him take some wear and tear off. Part of the reason why Ingram's still effective so many years after being drafted in the first round is because he was typically featured in a tandem, whether it was with Darren Sproles or Alvin Kamara. Like, he's had the opportunity to kind of split the load as opposed to being the guy.
For sure. All right, let's get into a little preview action. We can start with the Eagles offense versus the Viking defense. What's a matchup you're looking at?
Alshon Jeffrey versus Xavier Rhodes. Okay, so last week, Alshon Jeffrey was mostly covered by Tremaine Johnson. They did a lot of immediate throws at the line of scrimmage, hoping that Jeffrey could break a tackle or two and pick up some yardage from there. It worked. It was a mixed kind of work for him. I mean, he didn't get over 10 yards on any of them, but I think they're going to have to do that here too. Xavier Rhodes is a big corner. He's 6'1", a little over 200 pounds. They're going to have to get the ball out quickly here, especially because of the way that the Vikings like to blitz. Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks are pretty good blitzers. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of shots downfield. I think they're going to have to rely on the running game. And Jeffrey's going to have to catch the ball and then break some tackles. That's really going to be what it comes down to from that matchup. I'd also say Danielle Hunter on the opposite side versus Lane Johnson could be a make-or-break matchup for this offensive line. They've kept Carson Wentz clean for the last two games for the most part. They need to do that in this game. Again, blitzing is going to be heavy. You need to know who your assignments are, and you need to stop the front four of the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, so I looked at it. I went through the Vikings Pro Football Focus stats just for their main guys. Looks like Xavier Rhodes, relative to his career, is having one of his worst seasons, at least so far.
He got beat deep.
Yeah, he got beat. I think he's given up 200-something yards. He had a bad game against the Giants, actually gave up a touchdown, I think, to Darius Slayton.
Yeah, and it was a brilliant throw by Daniel Jones.
Yeah, so he's beatable, obviously. I mean, as you can see from the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, he got beat pretty good. How do you say his first name? Hunter? Daniil. He's 34 pressures, so he's top 5. I think he has 5 sacks. Everson Griffin has 27 pressures. He's pretty good. Livinal Joseph is okay. He's not that much of a pass rusher, though.
He's a great run.
Great run stopper. There's 2 safeties have been among the 2 best in the NFL.
Harrison
Smith and Anthony Harris is the other one.
Well, Harrison Smith's always been
great.
He's
always been great. Yeah. I've never even heard of Anthony Harris, to be honest with you, but it looks like he's having a good year. And Eric Kendricks has been graded the second best linebacker in the NFL so far, and Anthony Barr is having kind of a tough season.
Yeah, Anthony Barr is kind of a hit or miss kind of guy. Yeah. He can blitz well. He's just not very good at stopping the run. I'd say, with Eric Kendricks, he's actually pretty similar to his brother Michael, who everyone here is very familiar with. He can blitz well. He can cover. He can do anything. 2 UCLA linebackers, by the way.
Yeah. Anthony Barr was there when I was covering Arizona.
Yeah, I did a story with when I was in Jacksonville about Miles Jack reuniting with the 2 guys that mentored him.
Well, Barr, the Eagles would have played him last week if he had kept true to his original agreement because he signed with the Jets, remember?
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Probably would have been a star on their defense. Anyway, I think defensively they're good. They're not great. You can definitely score on them. You can run on them. They are ranked 9th in the league against the run. Part of that is due to them blowing out teams when they win.
Yeah.
You can run on this team. Jordan Howard has topped 100 yards in 3 of the 6 matchups he's played against the Bears.
That's a good stat.
He's also caught 61 yards as well in the receiving game. Yeah. He only had 1 bad game against the Vikings during his tenure, and that was 2 years ago when he was held to 9 yards on 9 carries.
Wow.
That said, that was towards the end of the John Fox era. They were bad. They were a bad offense.
And the Vikings' defense is better that year too.
Yeah. It was 2017.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It was the year of the NFC Championship game. Important to note, Jordan Howard in Week 17 of last year helped the Eagles get into the playoffs because he had 109 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Chicago Bears.
You mean against the Vikings?
Or for the Chicago Bears against the Vikings. The Bears won 24-10, despite the Vikings playing all their starters and the Bears not needing to win that game.
That's a good note.
So now he can go, kind of repeat history, but from another backfield.
Yeah.
I'm playing with...
He's doing a lot of stuff with his hands.
Doing stuff with my hands, but I just thought that was a great statistic that you can read more about on Thursday morning, which is today, because that's when we're posting.
So go to NJ.com.
If you're hearing a lot of movement, it's because I'm working while we're talking. So I think they'll be able to run on the Vikings. Passing could be a problem. Xavier Rhodes, they're going to have to kind of scheme up. The Vikings even admitted that Doug Peterson did a great job of scheming up against them in the NFC title game. I wouldn't be surprised if they did a similar approach with Carson Wentz that they did with Nick Foles. From a defensive perspective, their offensive line is not very good. You can attack and you can get to Kirk Cousins. Cousins does get the ball out quickly regularly, but there are also times where he'll sit there in the pocket and just wait for things to develop. They're going to work a lot of crossing routes. They have a lot of guys that can get yards after the catch. Thielen and Diggs in particular. Kyle Rudolph's always a problem in the red zone. This is going to be a tough test. I mean, it really is. People can make fun of Kirk Cousins all you want.
He's had good games against the Eagles.
Yeah, he has had good games against the Eagles. They're going to roll him out of the pocket pretty regularly on designed rollouts. That's going to be difficult for Brandon Graham. It's going to be difficult for Fletcher Cox. I'm interested to see what next steps Josh Sweat takes, what next steps that, Deshaun Hall and Derek Barnett take. This could be a big game for Derek Barnett if he's up to the task. I think overall, it's just an interesting matchup. I think it's very even. You'll see you'll hear when we do our predictions how close it'll probably be. I'm expecting kind of a low-scoring game in this one, but I do think it'll be close throughout.
All right, I'll just go through a few of my notes that I put down from the PFF stuff that I was reading. Their offensive line generally, across the board, hasn't been as good as in... Actually, no, it was pretty bad in years past, so maybe it's been a little better, honestly. But Brian O'Neill's been their one consistent guy. Garrett Bradbury, their rookie center, has been pretty bad relative to their Pro Football numbers. I think he's given up something like 4 sacks or something like that. So it could be a big Fletcher Cox day, potentially. I don't know how they are on the interior in general, but I'd say that. But Kirk Cousins is off to his worst start since 2014, according to their grading system. He was really bad against the Packers. He was regular level Kirk Cousins bad against the Falcons and the Bears, and he was fine against the Giants. And he was pretty good against the Giants, but they have a really bad secondary. So he hasn't, in typical Kirk Cousins fashion, he hasn't been good against anybody good. So,
yes, that sounds like him.
Yeah, I think he has a losing record against winning teams in his career. He has been pretty good on deep balls. He's really bad under pressure, but most quarterbacks kind of are. And you were saying how he throws the ball quickly. So when he throws in less than 2.5 seconds, he completes almost 80%. And when it's more than that, he completes only 60%, and that's where he's thrown both of his interceptions. So if they can make him either hold on to the ball or sack him, then they're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. Also, homecoming for Andrew Zendejo and Craig James.
That's true, yeah. Craig James was on the Vikings. And also, just some of these Dalvin Cook numbers are pretty ridiculous. Pro Football Focus has him as the third best running back. He averages almost 6 yards a carry, which is wild. 4.7 is really good, and that's what Howard has, and he's a full yard and a little bit more than that. He's averaging almost 4 yards after contact, which is also phenomenal. Not only is he a strong running back, but he also is the 5th most elusive running back in the NFL. And by the way, his backup, Alex Madison, is actually
he's really good.
He's really fast, and he's kind of a dangerous guy that in the past has had big games against the Eagles. Mm-hmm. So he's somebody to keep. It's not just Dalvin Cook. They just have a really good running game. And pretty amazing stat is more than half of his yardage has come on runs of 15 yards or more. So that dude, when he gets yardage, he gets a lot of yardage, and it really gashes the defense, which is why Mike Zimmer is just basically chosen not to pass the ball. And that's kind of why John DeFilippo got fired, because he wasn't running it enough, according to Zimmer.
Well, I think, too, if you can make them one-dimensional, and take away Dalvin Cook and you sell out on Dalvin Cook, which Jim Schwartz is going to do, spoiler alert, I think it helps you significantly. Thielen's obviously a great talent at wide receiver, but Kirk Cousins has shown when he has to be relied upon, he kind of shrinks under pressure a bit. I don't expect there to be a lot of turnovers in this game. Dalvin Cook hasn't fumbled a ton in this season, but he had some moments against the Giants where he put the ball in the dirt. So I think that's something to look out for. Again, this is a really even matchup. Like I can't emphasize that.
So give us your prediction. What you got?
I think I'm trying to remember what I wrote down, but I'm pretty sure it was 20-16.
Yep,
Eagles.
that's what you had.
I think the Eagles need to do what they did against the Packers and hold this Vikings team to field goals as opposed to touchdowns, and I think that'll keep them in the game. This is going to be a big game for Jake Elliott, who's been perfect so far, but he's only really attempted 5 field goals.
It's been low pressure for him so far.
Yeah. This is the game for him. They'll be in a dome. There should be no excuses. I don't think going back to the site of the Super Bowl has really been that big of a narrative for this team at all.
Yeah, they've downplayed it quite a bit.
Not just downplayed it, they just don't even seem flustered by the conversation. So I think that's kind of out of the realm. I just think, like, you have to dominate the red zone in this matchup. Whoever dominates the red zone is going to win this game. And I think that team will be inevitably the Eagles. I think when you look at all three of these upcoming matchups, they're pretty evenly talented teams, but you're playing a team on the road, and you've got to be able to handle that adversity of playing on the road, playing in a hostile environment, because these are 3 really good fan bases that bring the heat and bring the distraction. So I think the Eagles are game for this game. And I think they come away with the win, but it's a very, very close one and not one you feel very comfortable about heading into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I have basically the same score as you. I have Eagles 21, Vikings 17. I'm always wrong about the score, so you're probably going to be wrong too since we're that close to it. I just think that ultimately it's going to come down to Kirk Cousins having to beat the Eagles because their run defense, for all the injuries they've had and Fletcher Cox working his way back, like they've just shut down every single rushing attack. I forget what the exact number is, but I don't think any running back has had more than 60 yards against them. It might even be less than that. Dalvin Cook's definitely the most talented one, I would say, that they're going against, but I still think they can stop him. So if they can pressure Kirk Cousins to some extent like they did Luke Falk last week, I don't see any way they lose this game. Maybe it's even a wider gap than I said. So I'll end with that, and then let me read a few comments we got from our last episode real quick before we go. Bradley Slusser about Nelson Aguilar said he's always going to be inconsistent, good and bad. That's true. Skylar Allen. He said Skylar Allen says he's a guy. It said way too much. How about saying he's a dude or he's a man every once in a while? Love the show because I think you described somebody as that he's just a guy or whatever. I don't remember who it was. So he's asking if you just say he's just a dude from now on.
Okay, that works. Agreed.
It's a fair request. Jamie and Candace Palmer. I think we need to go get a backup deep threat. I was a big Foles fan, but Wentz has so much higher of a ceiling. Plus, Foles got hurt this year. Keep up the great work, guys.
A couple that comments together stays together.
No kidding. I respect that. Abraham Justice, and it has a photo of Abraham Lincoln with sunglasses on here. Aguilar does not stink. He has mental issues, and when he tries too hard, his rhythm is lost. He had completely overcome this, but now he's in a contract year, and he's pushing again too hard.
I don't disagree with that. I don't know if mental issues.
Yeah, that's a little extreme, but
no, I think what he means is
like
he
the way
makes
he
mental
did.
mistakes.
Yeah, like the way he did his rookie year and all that. This is the one I was telling you about your Stephon Diggs proposal. Daniel Tim says, "Damn, reaching, aren't you? You say Nelson and a third for Diggs. He, meaning me, says there's no way the Vikings will go for that. I agree. Then you try to make sense of it by saying you think Diggs is highly overrated. LOL. So let me understand your logic. Let's give up wide receiver and a third for someone highly overrated.
I mean, he's highly overrated from a standpoint of people think he's like an all-pro wide receiver. He's not. He's never even made a Pro Bowl. But I don't think the value of a trade for him would be that extreme, is all I'm saying.
But more than what you said.
Yeah, maybe that's fair. I'll admit to that.
Roadrunner says Cleveland is willing to trade OBJ, so Howie go get him and Harris from Denver, and let's go on this run. And just a light, go get an elite corner and one of the top 5 best receivers in the NFL. I don't think Odell Beckham's going anywhere, guys. Holy tomatoes.
Again?
Yeah, repeat commenters. Hello, fellow birdheads. What do you think about the Eagles sending Big V and Nelson to the Browns for Odell? The Browns do need O-line help. Do you think the Browns will shop him? If the Eagles don't get him, I think he'll get traded to the Patriots. Is there like a story about him being on the block or something?
I don't know. I think people think he's just frustrated because they target him as
yeah.
What I thought was weird the other night, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like they got him involved as a runner.
Yeah.
And
a passer. He threw the ball too.
Right. And so ESPN's commentators are like, or was it NBC? No, it was ESPN, right? This is Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
They're like, man, good for the Browns for getting Odell Beckham Jr. involved in the game. What do you mean? The guy's like one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league.
God, Freddie Kitchens, he's such a bad coach.
Oh, man, that was such a terrible...
All right, last comment, then we'll get out of here. Cook is scary, but their O-line versus the Eagles' D-line, we should win that battle. Thielen is going to be a problem. My thought is Rasul with help over the top.
I agree.
Linebackers have to play smart to cover the middle of the field and the flats in case Cook gets free. I think the Vikings D is overrated. The Giants showed that they can move the ball against them, and their O-line sucks. Overall, Eagles win 31-21. All right.
I like that. That's a good comment.
All right, so leave your guys... I'll remember that prediction for Sunday in case he gets it right. Leave some more predictions for Sunday, score, or whatever else you have in mind. And, thanks for listening, guys.